Welcome to Energy in Motion, everybody. I'm your host, Rah Kalon, and I get the opportunity to sit comfortably in my home with my friend Angela. Do y'all remember that previous episode where that wonderful woman, Miss Cassandra, was spitting that awesome insight? This is Angela. This is the one I love that I was talking about. This is her awesome daughter. So to get this episode started off, I want to give Angela the opportunity to talk a little bit about intimidation in the sense that she was not intimidated when she first met me, even though she should have been. Tell them how we met, Angela. Tell them how we met.
Should have been intimidated, but I wasn't. So, okay. So, we met at University of North Texas, and I had spent the night in my car, honestly. But I was like, you know what? I don't know if I should be here. I feel like I should.
You spent the night in your car?
I spent the night in my car.
Why?
I did not have a place to stay.
I didn't know that.
I believe I told you that, though.
I believe you did, too. Terrible friend. I believe you did, too. But I just looking back on it, that's not how I... Go ahead.
Yeah. So, no, that's just me, though. Didn't really faze me. I found a spot to take a shower, and then I couldn't find where I needed to meet up. My phone was low on battery. Asked some people. They were like, yeah, I knew I needed to be in the university center. Was headed, finally found a place to park, and I knew it wouldn't get towed, and I was headed to the university center. Walking up to the doors, and here was this lovely woman, young woman at the time.
Oh, I'm old now? It's cool. It's cool. No, she's right, though. It was a whole different... I had locks. I was a whole different person then, yeah.
Very serious face, though. Very mean mug. Very serious.
RBF. Truly.
Definition of RBF. And for some reason it changed my whole mood. It lit me up. I was like, I'm following her. That's going to be my buddy for the rest of the day. I don't know what's going on in her life. I just spent the night in my car, but
so me and her might have some things to talk about based on how she looked.
We're going to be buddies. And I walked up to her. She was opening the door, but then I held the door. I spoke to her. And for me, I was sold. That face sold me. I introduced myself, and I said, we were going to be friends. I made plans. We went to our first session or something together.
Because it was the big orientation, and then it was
Right. And in my mind, I had planned our whole day. Like, we're going to go to everything together. We're meeting back up when we split up because we majored in different things. So, of course, they split the majors. And I was like, meet me back here for lunch.
And believe it or not, despite the resting bitch face, I was so thankful to have someone to look forward to seeing. Because it was intimidating. Going to your orientation, going and being around all these people. You don't know anybody up there. I was having a terrible day already. It was hot. I had to park really, really far. And look at me boosting my issues, not even remembering what this one was going through. But I was just out of it. And she is not like minimizing it. She lit up. And it almost annoyed me how happy she was. And I was like, why are you so happy? Like, it's a terrible day to be at UNT. But
I met you. That was the best part, though. Someone who looked miserable, angry, whatever. It's like, we're going to share this misery, but we're going to make it great. We're going to be happy about it. This orientation, this is my friend.
Yeah. And it got so quickly enmeshed that we tried to become roommates by the end of the day. We started trying to file the information to the dorms to be at College Inn. And so we were successful. We both ended up in College Inn, but we didn't get to be roommates. They messed up our stuff. But yeah, it happened that quickly. And so this is just a brief example of how on the other side of what you think should intimidate you might be something that will bless you for the rest of your life. Like this friendship has. Yes. So, Angela, can we go ahead and get into the rest of this episode?
We can.
Let's do it. Okay, so as always with these shows, I like to start off with the definition. I looked up what intimidate means. Like, what is the definition to intimidate? So it says to frighten or overawe someone, especially in order to make them do what one wants. Oftentimes, we're intimidated by things that aren't actual living beings. We're intimidated by opportunities. We're intimidated by situations. I get why some people experience intimidation towards other people, but where do you think this fear, this intimidation stems from?
Self-doubt, lack of confidence, and many times ultimately wanting to be validated by someone else or something else.
Yeah. And the fear of not presenting in the right way or doing something that could take away that acceptance or that validation.
Right.
Yeah, I think it always comes down to fear. And usually it's the fear of either not gaining something or losing something.
Absolutely.
So much attachment in the human concern. So much attachment. So, are you someone who's easily intimidated?
I am not easily intimidated.
I'm glad you're not lying to the people, because I was going to say, if you said anything less than that, I was going to be like, nah, that ain't true.
Not me, not
you,
her.
Not this one. How do you not be intimidated? Like, can someone take that out of your DNA and share it with the world? Like, how do you not experience that?
I think it's what you're born with. Some people are born with it. It's a character trait. I'm not easily intimidated. I'm not easily scared away from things. I love a good challenge. Mm-hmm. Example, when I first met you, I loved the thought of this may not be easy.
Man.
I might be met with animosity. I might be met with hostility. I'm up for the challenge. Let's go for it, because I'm going to win her over. And
it worked. It worked so quickly. It took a second because I just was so suspicious of why you were so joyous. I was like, you look as hot as I am. Are you also here for orientation? So you know what we're up against. And she was still happy. What?
Yes. And it's an internal self-confidence that I have.
Have you always had that internal self-confidence?
I don't believe so. Actually, I know I didn't always have it. As a young child, I was overweight because I was on steroids. So I was a fat kid at one point, very overweight, obese. And I was picked on a lot, and I hated it. Initially, it was I feared other kids. I feared going to school. I feared being picked on. And then that fear and that intimidation turned into anger. It turned into hatred. And then it turned into me at one point, brief point, being a bully as a young child and intimidating others.
Of course. Because you needed to push it out.
Right.
All that anger couldn't stay in you.
It couldn't stay in. But I got to a point where I realized, okay, this isn't what I want either. These aren't the reactions that I want. I don't want other people to be afraid of me and fear me. I don't want to invoke, fear. What am I doing with my life? And I changed later, my late teens. I became someone else. Well, a different version of myself, a better version of myself. And I'm always becoming an even better version of myself.
Constant evolution.
Yes.
We're all doing it. At least you've been aware of that change within yourself so that you can appreciate it. I think there's something so beautiful, because sometimes I'll recognize that I experience intimidation, but it's about new things, right? So the things that used to intimidate me, now I smile at them. It's like, why was I ever so afraid to get up and say that? Or why was I ever so afraid to approach this new task or this new challenge? But now I also encounter things that are ahead of me that I'm like, oh, I need to build up strength or build up intelligence or build up ability to approach that. And so I would still consider it being intimidation, even though I feel like I've learned enough so far to know nothing should push me back. Right. Just still keep moving forward. Even if you're not sure, even if you're uncertain, keep moving forward, and you'll learn what you need to along the way. But coming up against new tasks in this point in life that you're at right now, do you experience any uncertainty, which is usually what makes us feel so insecure or intimidated? A
little bit of uncertainty, but not the intimidation. I feel that intimidation is the extreme of fear, and it makes you not act and not progress.
It freezes you.
Right, right. And ultimately what you were just saying, I feel that it is the fear of the unknown, which is the ultimate intimidation, which is why people don't act, don't progress. But for me, no, it's no longer intimidation. It's, yes, I fear the unknown, but let's go.
Yeah.
Feet first, let's go.
And that's the thing that I think people are going to be like, we need to bottle that and sell that to others, because I think it comes down to a bit of resiliency.
Right.
I think it has a lot to do with upbringing, in the sense of, were you given the opportunity to stumble, fall, and then help yourself get back up? Or were you always coddled? Were you always hovered over or sheltered? Because then that could make you very intimidated when you get out into the world, because there's no one doing that for you still. Or if someone was always like, well, you shouldn't have fell in the first place. It already puts this fear of being judged for making the mistake, so you don't even want to try because you're afraid of people losing respect or people gaining the ability to make fun of you. So still that loss and gain concern of fear. When it comes to dealing with the let's just dive in feet first, do you ever think about what could go wrong?
I do. I am an ABC plus maybe Z planner. I have a plan, a backup plan, a backup to my backup, and so forth, because I know things go wrong. Things can go wrong. And for me, that may be what cuts off that intimidation. It's because if I plan for this, and if I plan for the things that could go wrong, that might go wrong, and that I know will go wrong, then I will be okay. And also just upfront accepting ultimately whether or not things go right or go wrong. Just accept it up front, and then you go. You have no choice to stay still. You have no choice not to progress, move forward, or do the things that you love or want to do.
So you talked about how you make plans.
Yes.
And what I hear when you say you make plans is that you are focusing a lot of intention. You are being very thoughtful and mindful of what you want the result to be. And your interest, even though you're aware that it could go different, your interest is in how it could go right. So your attention is focused on the outcome, not so much all the ways that it could go awry. I think that's what makes you different than other people. Because when people see a challenge, they start thinking about what could go wrong and not necessarily always strategizing how to get to their positive result or their ideal result, but they stay focused in what could go wrong. And it sounds like you move through that thought process. So you start in, okay, so yeah, that could go wrong, and I accept that. But then you move through to all the ways it could go right. And then I think it often manifests that way because you were so focused intentionally on this is the result I want. Do you feel like you are a big attractor of the things that you want?
Yes. And
she's like, yeah.
Yes, an attractor of the things I want, but only because I go after those things. Maybe the goalpost is 100 yards away at this moment, but for whatever reason, I get moved 500 yards back. So now I've got, additional 600 yards to go to the goalpost. Okay, what do I need to do to get there? So I knew I could get moved back. I knew that was a possibility. That was a wrong. That was a negative. That's fine. But what do I need to keep doing to finally get there? I don't care where it's moving to. I'm going to keep moving in that direction until I get there.
Yeah. And being accepting of however the situation unfolds.
That's ultimately what people need to do. Because if you don't even accept being moved back, because some people say, well, I knew I could have gotten moved back. I was just not expecting to be moved back. And once they've been derailed or delayed and their progress has been hindered or moved back, they stop or they whine and they want to have self-pity,
complain,
a pity party. Right.
Stay there.
And no, you should keep going. Because otherwise, you're intimidated by the additional progress you need to make now to get where you're going.
Because I think that is exactly when you said you get moved back 100 feet when you were already 500 back, then most people would just be like, well, then I'm not supposed to go that way. They would just turn around altogether and be like, well, since I'm being pushed back, I'll just turn around and go the other direction. And there are some people who have the grit, the tenacity, the resilience to keep going in the direction. And then there are others who just don't. So how do you pick, with you having all of this fire towards, I just move towards a challenge, I move through it. How do you pick your battles? How do you know when a challenge is something that you need to pick a new direction for?
It's a spiritual thing for me.
Ooh, talk about it.
When I feel it, if I feel something deep down and I know that's where I'm supposed to be, I know there are going to be hurdles. I know there are going to be challenges. I know it won't be easy to get there. So when the challenges present themselves, I say to myself, well, this is one more reason why I absolutely need to get there. Because why is this one negative or this one hindrance one more reason why I shouldn't be there? What's so good about it that I have all these hurdles and all these hindrances to keep me from being there? I need to be there even faster, even more, so then I keep progressing in that direction.
How do you enjoy the journey as you encounter those obstacles? How do you use the obstacles to keep you grounded in your trust that this is where I'm supposed to go? Do you find a way to stay positive in the midst of that?
I do. However, I will admit there are times when I do feel negative and I do feel down, and I say, you know, this is taking me longer than I planned to. Mm-hmm. But who am I to just set forth this little arbitrary plan, and maybe it was unrealistic. So then I start thinking about my thinking, because, oh, this is a hypothetical. Oh, I want to be a doctor in a year. That's not possible. But hey, what's stopping me from trying to achieve that? What's stopping me from going to, you know, study, take the NCAT and get into med school and keep saying to myself, I want to be a doctor within a year? That's just not possible, because in general, med school is 4 years.
Mm-hmm. The process.
And it's
in place for a reason.
So your thinking needs to be realistic and needs to be in alignment with your goal. Mm-hmm. So I say to myself with other goals or smaller goals that, hey, you know, what if my thinking's not realistic? What if this time frame isn't a realistic time frame? So I reevaluate and then I keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's the reevaluation. I think when people set these very arbitrary plans, like you say, they get so caught up in their intention to this plan, this attachment to this plan also. And there's a difference, I feel like, between knowing what you want and knowing the end result and then being a slave or anchored to it having to be this way.
Yes.
Because what you want could come a completely abstract way, and someone would be angry about receiving what they want the wrong way. They might get what they wanted, but because it didn't come the way they thought it should, they're suspicious of it.
Or it's harder. It was a much more difficult journey than they expected, and then they get there.
And it's not always what they thought it was. And that's why I'm so convinced when it comes to people that we really are here for the manifesting. We're not here for the manifestation. We're here for the move up so many yards, get pushed back so many yards. Right. We're not here to just run straight to the goalpost. No. Because that's boring, honestly. And as exhausted as we get, we really have to realize that we came down here for the experience. And so I think holding on to the idea that maybe you think you're supposed to be running to the goalpost because you want to get to the goalpost, and then all of a sudden a helicopter comes down, scoops you, takes you around the world, and then drops you back off at the goalpost. Will you still appreciate your goalpost?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And the journey.
And the journey.
That's exciting. A helicopter came in and scooped me up. Wait a minute.
You know?
Where are we going?
Celebrity, you know?
Yes.
But I think it's so important because you could get something that's so much cooler than maybe what you were shooting for. And you'll still eventually get back to what you were shooting for, as long as you're open and not intimidated by the obstacles that occur. Because there's a guiding force always working for things to turn out in your favor. Now, in your opinion, it might not look the way you consider favor to look, but that's very often the direction you're supposed to head in. It could be saving you from so many other grievances. It could be saving you from so many other harder lessons just because you were given this inconvenient shortcut.
Right.
Yeah. So when's the last time, if ever...
Okay.
Because obviously it has happened at some point. When's the last time you recall being intimidated? Even just a little bit.
Being intimidated. I would say... I'd say my first day on the floor as a new nurse, as a new registered nurse.
And how long ago was that?
This was 2015.
Okay, 4 years ago.
So yes, there were so many senior nurses, and there are all these, older nurses eat their young. They eat their young kind of thing. And I'm like, what is that?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? They eat their young. First of all, that's cannibalism, and that's disgusting. Yeah, let's not do that. And what they mean by that is there's bullying, there's intimidation to an extreme when it comes to new nurses in certain facilities, not everywhere, and certain units. ICU is a specialty unit, cardiac units are specialty units. And the premise behind it is senior nurses are afraid to lose their job. They're afraid that if I teach this younger nurse, this newer nurse, all the information that I've acquired over the years, I have established myself, right? I will lose my purpose, and this company will potentially fire me. And the sad truth about it is it does happen. It does happen more often.
So their fear is valid.
Right. Their fear is valid. However, their practice of intimidation and bullying is not valid.
Of course.
Because if they teach the younger nurses, because younger nurses will soon one day be in their position,
Mm-hmm.
if they come together, then there won't be the need to intimidate a new nurse. And I received a lot of bullying, a lot of intimidation, and nurses not telling me the right way to perform certain duties, and is very unfortunate. It's very sad. And I felt like, okay, maybe this isn't where I need to be. I didn't like going to work. I hated it. I feared that, something bad was going to happen and I was going to lose my license, and all these senior nurses are going to be against me if it ever came down to it. But every morning that I woke up, there was always that, like, my feet were telling me, my body, my subconscious was telling me, no, you need to get up, put your pants on, one leg at a time. You need to just go to work and keep going. Learn what you need to learn. It's okay to make mistakes. You don't know everything. You're not going to know everything just starting out. And you're never going to know everything, no matter how long you've been in a certain position.
Absolutely.
All you can do is keep being the best you and keep advancing in your practice. Well, in my practice. But I was telling myself that I just needed to keep advancing in my practice, regardless of the senior nurses and all the intimidation. And that's what I did. Here I am 4 years later and still advancing. But I do make a point to not be a bully and not intimidate newer nurses. I try to pass on as much knowledge as possible because I myself am not going to remain in this position forever.
Absolutely. And I think when people are bullies in positions of power, it is because they are so fearful of going back to being small. And so they hold on so tight to this little bit of information, forgetting that there's still more information to come.
Right.
Once this role is over, there are other roles to fill. And I think your ability to do that, to not be bitter or to be worried about anybody else's impact on your growth, because you're going to grow regardless, gives you the ability to pour positively into these new nurses. And it's also going to shine a positive light for people to want to work with you further to further advance you. I understand why people get intimidated when there are newer, younger models coming out. I do get it. But it's also like, you're not going to cease to exist. Maybe you won't be doing this anymore, but maybe it won't be appropriate for you to be doing that anymore. Maybe there could be a better opportunity. And I think people are just afraid to intentionally prepare to grow when they're comfortable or when they're familiar, because that is scary. And that in itself is intimidating. So, that's crazy. That's crazy. Well, I think for me, the last time I was intimidated would probably be, I'd say a week or two ago, when I realized I was going to be done for sure with KMWI Media. And I was going to take on doing all this at home. And I'm fully aware that while I am enrolled to take classes, they have not started yet, over audio and visual editing. And while I am able to do all this with the equipment I have, there's so much I don't know. And the fear that my show would lack quality, or that my show would take a dip in viewers or followers because it didn't have the same setup, I was intimidated by the change of it. And then the second that I actually stepped into it, because for the Growing Pains episode, I was still technically with KMWI. I knew that we had a lot that we needed to talk about, but I still had them as a safety net. I was like, okay, I could go back and I could record there if I need to. But then after a couple of conversations after the most recent episode, the identity crisis that was shot there, it was like, no, it's time. It's time to part ways. I don't know what's on the other side of this parting of ways, but it's time. And then realizing I have a lot more freedom over here.
Yes.
There are a lot of things I need to learn. Yes. So I could look at that as the con here. But the pro is I can do whatever the fuck I want. I can record visually and then just do audio. I can just do audio and not do visual that week. I can record more often. I have the money that I was paying the studio in my pocket to put into the business. So once I was able to move past that intimidation, which is how it always happens for me, because I am not like an Angela. I am like a Rah. I get intimidated very often. I wouldn't say very often as much as some people do, but I consider myself as spiritually confident as I am to experience a lot of human intimidation, just because I think a lot and I can psych myself out. And that's why the ego conversation and becoming aware that my mind is not me has been such a relief, because now when I hear those thoughts, when I hear the intimidation start to try to creep in, the self-doubt, the insecurities, I can observe the thought without identifying with it. It's like, oh, based off your previous experiences, you think you should be intimidated right now. Based off the fact that your brain knows you don't have the knowledge to do this or that yet, you should probably not try this. And it's like, I hear you. Thank you for your opinion, thought. But I don't claim you. You're not my thought. You are some distant visiting thought. Thank you for the visit. Please be on your way. I'm going to start thinking about all the things I can do with this that will make me happy. And so, being someone who does experience intimidation pretty frequently, I still know that I'm different from others because I'm aware to move through also. Being an empath, I feel it very deeply. I experience it. And then being someone who's emotionally fluid, I flow on through. And for those people who experience intimidation, but stay in intimidation, do you have any advice for them?
Arm yourself with knowledge. What is it that you feel intimidated by? Is it work related? Learn the things you feel you don't know. The more you know, the better prepared you are, and the more confidence you'll have. And so then you won't feel the need to feel stuck or to feel fearful. So yeah, just arm yourself with the knowledge that you need.
And that's perfect advice, because that ties into that insecurity episode where we talked about the brain is just sending you a message. When you feel insecure, if you feel intimidated, if you're feeling self-doubt, the brain is just trying to tell you, I don't, based off the files I have for us, know where to find this information.
Yes.
Do you have intentions of telling me when we're going to find it? Before this event, before this occasion, before this conversation, whatever you're about to put yourself in the situation of that's intimidating you. The brain, your mind is just wanting to have a conference call of, hey, we don't have that. Do you have it on you? Oh no, you're going to go get that information? Okay, cool. We'll be all right. I think it's being mindful of not allowing yourself to just submit to that first thought of self-doubt just because it's so strong. It's such a strong thought. It's such a strong feeling. And something that also helped me was learning that feelings are experienced in the body before we're really that aware of them. There's a physical response, like a gut pain sometimes. The amygdala be tripping, and we experience this. And when we are experiencing an unpleasant feeling such as intimidation, it's not the feeling that we're upset about, it's the physical sensation. Yes. We instinctively want to stay away from being in pain or uncomfortable. I don't think we mind sorting through what we're feeling if we didn't have to feel pain or discomfort. But I think anybody who works out knows the pain and the discomfort often means things are going well, things are growing, things are building. And I think we have to arm ourselves with being excited when that growth pain happens. Being mindful to check in and to say, okay, where is this coming from? How do I feel about it? And then intuitively kind of checking spiritually, like, is this a positive growth pain? And is this a pain that is saying I'm on track and I just need to dig my heels in? Or is this a pain saying move in another direction? Yes. And your point about how your subconscious, your spiritual self kept telling you, like, hey, put your pants on, put your shoes on, you're going to work today. There is that inner voice for each of us. I think some of us just don't know how to listen as well as others do. And if you're in your 20s or above and you haven't started talking to that inner voice, fortunately for you, it's never too late and it has lots to say. So encouraging yourself to just have some quiet time, to be able to sit with you and to hear what you actually want versus what you think you should want would be very, very valuable to your growth as a person. So if you are someone experiencing intimidation regularly, frequently, you are not alone. Angela doesn't experience it, but I feel it, and I'm with you. Please make sure that you reach out if you ever are having situations where you just want to know that you're not alone in it. 3InMotion on Instagram is the perfect place to do this reaching out. It's so important for us to have these conversations because it could be one of those things that a whole new episode is brought up because of something you were brave enough to share. So don't be intimidated to reach out on 3InMotion, 3InMotion. Angela, I want to thank you for coming today. Thank you, my sweet, sweet friend. Do you have anything else you want to share?
Just one little wrap up to the intimidation thing. If you feel that you'll be embarrassed, we all get embarrassed. We all do things that make us look foolish, and at the end of the day, it might not make you look foolish. It might actually help someone else in the process. So again, like Rah was saying, reach out to 3InMotion and let us know your thoughts and your opinions, and don't be afraid to embarrass yourself. so to speak.
Yeah, this is a safe space. I embarrass myself all the time. I can probably count 3 times on this recording I've already embarrassed myself. So join me in the embarrassment, because there's community over here. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, and as always on 3 in Motion, you get to feel whatever you feel, and you will always deserve to heal. Peace.
One love, you're heading on your own love. Time not to be there.